If you're a real estate investor with a project stalled out in the middle of construction, or you're looking at a half demoed property and wondering whether any lender is going to touch it, you need to learn about the J curve. Because here's what most lenders actually don't understand and most borrowers don't believe: lending on a fully gutted property is actually one of the safest deals a hard money lender can do. I'm Aidan, and I funded hundreds of millions of dollars in hard money loans for real estate investors across the country. Last week, I closed a $1.28 million loan on a property that was completely stripped to the studs. It was an oceanfront home, and the borrower had gutted it down to the frame and needed to refinance it into a new lender to finish the rehab. The reason most lenders would have passed on this exact deal isn't because the borrower wasn't good. They're a repeat client of ours with a great track record. It's actually because most lenders don't understand the math of where property values live during a rehab. I'll walk you through that in a minute. Here's what we're going to cover. First, I'll explain what the J curve actually is using the simplest way to visualize how property values move during a flip. Second, I'll show you why the bottom of that curve is the safest place for a lender to step in, even though it looks like the opposite. And third, I'll walk you through the real deal we just closed for $1.28 million and what that means for any investor with a project mid-rehab right now. So what is the J curve? It's the shape of a flip. When we think of the J curve, picture a J on a graph. That's the exact path a property value takes during a flip. You start at the top left of the J with the property at its purchase value on day one. Then comes the demo and gut phase, where the value drops as the property gets partially destroyed in that phase. The bottom of the J is when the property is fully gutted, and that's when the value is at the lowest point in the entire cycle. Then the rehab phase begins, and the value starts climbing back up as the work goes in. The finish line is at the top of that J, and that's the ARV, which is the after repair value, basically what the property is worth once the renovation is done. The shape happens on every single flip, but most investors never think about it because they're not looking at the deal through the lender's eyes. Sometimes the J is less aggressive, sometimes it's very, very, very aggressive. Lenders care about one number more than any other number on a deal, and that's their cushion, the gap between the loan amount and what they could recover if anything went wrong. At purchase, the lender's cushion is calculated against the current value of the property. During demo, the value drops, but the loan amount stays exactly the same, which means the cushion actually shrinks. And this is the riskiest moment of the entire flip from the lender's perspective. At the bottom of the J, the value bottoms out completely. If the lender's cushion is still intact at that point, the property literally cannot drop in value any further. During the rehab, the value climbs back up, which means the lender's cushion grows with every dollar that goes into the work. The translation is that a lender stepping in at the bottom of the J curve already knows the next direction the property can move, and that's up. That's structurally safer than lending at any other point in the cycle. Most lenders look at a gutted house and see a destroyed property, but the right lender looks at a gutted house and sees the property that has already taken its worst valuation hit. So let's talk about the deal that we just closed and the proof why the J curve works. The property was an oceanfront single-family home in Hawaii. The total loan was $1.283 million. The property was fully gutted and mid-construction when we underwrote it. And the borrowers, they were repeat clients of ours with a track record on prior deals, so we knew we could trust them with the heavy rehab. The use of the funds was to pay off the existing debt with the prior lender, cover the closing costs, and fund the remaining renovation budget they needed to actually finish. The reason this was a safe lend for us is that the property had already taken its biggest value hit. It was the bottom of the J curve, which meant every dollar going into the rehab from this point forward was going to move the value back up that J curve. Most lenders saw a half demoed oceanfront property and ran the other way. We looked at it and saw a property sitting right at the bottom of the J, which meant our cushion was about to grow with every draw we funded. This is exactly the kind of deal where understanding the math gets us to a yes when most other lenders default to a no. And this is the moment in the deal where a deal calculator can be super helpful. If you've got a project that's mid-rehab right now and you're trying to figure out whether you can refinance into a new lender, try running your numbers through our free hard money calculator at calculator.rcprivatelending.com. Same thing if you're looking at a distressed property and you're wondering if it's even fundable in its current condition. You plug in the current condition value, your remaining rehab budget, and your ARV. The calculator will show you what kind of loan structure could actually work and whether the deal still fits inside our box. That's honestly the easiest way to know if it's worth a conversation before you spend time pitching it to anybody. So if your project is stalled mid-rehab and your lender bailed on you, You actually have options, but you need to look specifically for lenders who understand the J curve instead of the ones who just see a gutted house and panic. If you're hunting distressed properties, the gutted ones are the ones that scare most buyers, even though it's often the cleanest entry point you can find. The price has been beaten down to reflect the work needed. This means less competition, better numbers, and faster underwriting. If you're planning a flip from scratch, understanding where you are on the J curve at any given moment helps you time your refi requests if you need, your draws, which are the chunks of money the lender releases as your construction milestones get completed, and your timeline conversations that you can have with your lender. The investors who think like the lender end up getting better terms than the investors who think just like buyers every single time. Go ahead and drop your current project stage of any deals you got going on in the comments, pre-purchase, mid-demo, mid-rehab, or pre-listing, and I'll do a future video on exactly what to watch for at each stage of this J-curve. And before I wrap this up, there's one more thing about the J-curve that explains why most lenders won't touch mid-construction deals. The reason isn't actually that these deals are bad, it's that most lenders only work with one capital partner. And their one capital partner or investor usually has a hard rule against funding anything that's in a mid-construction phase. We work with multiple institutional partners on the back end, which is why we can take on the deals that other lenders end up passing on. Same J curve, same math, but a different structure on the lender side means the deal funds instead of dying. Even if your next project isn't a mid-construction takeover, knowing where the J curve sits during your flip helps you negotiate better terms. It helps you time your draws better too. And it helps you understand exactly why your lender is reacting the way that they are at any given stage. The borrowers who understand the lender's math always end up with the better deals than the ones who don't. So if you've got a project mid-rehab right now and you want to know whether it's actually fundable, click the link down below and run it through our calculator. And if you want to see exactly how I evaluate a deal before we even issue terms, the full underwriting walkthrough, click the video on screen now.